All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome, everyone who is joining our YouTube Live broadcast tonight. We are so excited to have you here and to talk about our awesome programming at School Year Abroad, or SYA, as we call it. We will give folks who are still joining a couple of moments here, and then we will get going with our program. I do want to do a brief overview of our agenda for tonight. So we are joined by 4 awesome SYA alums who you will meet in a moment here. And we will introduce them, and then I will do a brief admissions presentation about our 3 campuses in Spain, Italy, and France. And then we will go into our panel with our alums. So we will have a shorter Q&A and then a longer kind of storytelling Q&A. And then we have all of the questions that you have submitted when you registered for this event. So we will be able to get through most of those. And if we don't, of course, you can email me. I will have my email in the chat at the end. And if you can only stay for a portion of the broadcast, we will have this up on our YouTube so you can see it afterwards. We'll send the link out to everyone who registered. So I will bring out our awesome SYA alums and we will do our introductions. And once again, my name is Maggie Bland and I work for admissions at School Year Abroad. So here we go. Here are all of our SYA alums who have joined us tonight. We have Hannah from France, Mary Morgan from Italy, and Seti and Will from Spain. So let's start with Hannah. And just hear a little bit of an introduction.
Bonjour tout le monde, je m'appelle Anna, j'ai étudié à Rennes, France, SYA, et maintenant je suis en terminale à Georgetown Day School. So in English, hi everyone, my name is Hannah. I studied abroad in Rennes, France for the year, and right now I go to Georgetown Day School as a senior.
Thank you, Hannah. All right, Will, we will go to you, and then Mary Morgan after Will.
Hola, soy Will y fui a SYA España, que está en Zaragoza. En los Estados Unidos soy de Florida, en Jacksonville, y estoy emocionadísimo para hablaros sobre esta experiencia porque fue una oportunidad fenomenal. So in English, hello, I'm Will Galatly, and I did SYA Spain in Zaragoza. I'm from Jacksonville, Florida, and I go to the Bowles School. I'm super excited to tell you guys about this program. I had the year of my life at SYA, and I'm a huge advocate of studying abroad in high school. I think it's an amazingly unique opportunity.
Awesome. Thanks, Will. All right, Mary Morgan, over to you.
Ok, ciao, mi chiamo Mary Morgan e l'anno scorso ho studiato in Viterbo, Italia, e adesso io vivo a Charlotte, North Carolina, e io voy alla scuola Charlotte Country Day. So in English, I'm Mary Morgan. Last year I studied in Viterbo, Italy for the year, and right now I go to Charlotte Country Day School and I live in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Awesome. Thanks, Mary Morgan. And then finally, Seti.
Hola, me llamo Seti. Estoy de Washington, D.C. y ahora estoy en The Thatcher School en California y el año pasado estaba en Zaragoza, España con Will y fue un año increíble y el año favorito de mi tiempo en el colegio. So in English, hi, I'm Seti. I'm from Washington, D.C. and I go to the Thatcher School in California. And last year I studied abroad in Zaragoza, Spain. And it was the best year of my life. And I'm so excited to tell you guys about it.
Awesome. Thank you all. We are so excited to hear from you a little bit more after this presentation. So I will go ahead and share my screen and we will get going on our admissions presentation. Let me share the window. Okay. So again, welcome everyone to our information session on School Year Abroad. So at SYA, we really hope that you will consider making the world your home. With campuses in France, Italy, and Spain, we hope that you'll take this opportunity to push yourself outside your comfort zone, gain independence, and turn your textbooks into contexts. I do like to note here that for our France and Spain programs, both for the semester and the academic year, you do have to be in level 2 of the language or above in high school, or have 2 years of high school experience. Our Italy program does not have an Italian requirement, but we do like to see that you've taken a foreign language for 2 years. So I will go ahead and share a video. Let me stop sharing this.
Every experience you have here will be an adventure. The risks, the rewards, they're all included.
This entire year has just been about things being based on where we are or where we are going with the school next. You learn about something and then you get to experience it. That makes classes a lot more engaging, knowing that we're going to see the things that we're studying.
You really feel the gravity of the things that you learn out of your textbook rather than just hearing about them and memorizing some flashcards. I think it's the difference between memorization and understanding.
It's not just schoolwork, it's actual practical experience that you can't really get anywhere else.
What SYA does best is make students comfortable being uncomfortable. You really start to embrace the idea of being uncomfortable.
I don't think any other program could really give you this experience. They're willing to throw their students into these situations, trust that we'll be okay, and in the end we are okay, and I think that we take so much away from it just because SYA is willing to give us that trust and freedom.
So the capstone project is the culminating end-of-year project for all SYA students. It's very much grounded in the fact that we are in Spain, and the goal of the project is to take best advantage of the resources that are around us.
I think that I've been able to get through the surface level of my experience here, not only with the land, but with the people. And I think that the longer that you're here, the deeper beneath the surface you can really get.
My host family, they are the cutest people I have ever met. I can leave Italy saying, I'm part Italian now. I am part of their family and they love me and I love them. The relationships that I've created with them, that's something that I'm going to carry with me for the rest of my life.
My friends have been a big part of this experience because I've been able to find a really good group of people who are just as adventurous as I am. I'm very glad I did SYA. It has opened my horizons to travel and being more independent.
I know it can be sort of scary thinking, oh, 9 months in a foreign country. It flies by so fast and it's so fun. It's an experience that I feel so fortunate to have been involved in. It's not something that a lot of people get to do, so if you have the opportunity, please do it.
For anyone who's on the fence about going to SYA or even applying, the fact that you're even thinking about it probably means that you're somebody who should be here.
All right, great. So we will go back to the presentation for just a few more minutes. So as the video mentioned, all of our students at SYA live with a personally matched host family as they immerse themselves in the local culture and feel truly at home while living abroad. SYA students are part of a small student body composed of sophomores, juniors, and seniors from high schools all across the United States and beyond. For those of you who may feel slightly intimidated by the language component to our program, I do like to mention that a wide variety of language learners really excel at SYA due to our fully immersive programming. Our hands-on and fieldwork-based curriculum will challenge you to think creatively and critically, all while getting your graduation requirements at your home school. You'll venture outside the classroom and learn from the culture around you and design your own final capstone project. You'll also be able to travel extensively throughout your host country with the school. And you will get the opportunity to contribute to the local culture through musical, athletic, and service-oriented opportunities. You'll be guided by dedicated local and American faculty members who serve as your teachers, advisors, and college counselors. So in addition to having a college counselor on campus and being SAT testing sites, what we hear from students is that the most important part about SYA in terms of the college application process is that our students find their voices overseas. It really shows colleges that you have the grit and ambition it takes to live in a different country and learn a new language. Just take a look at the colleges and universities most frequently attended by SYA in the past 5 years. So at SYA, we also believe that financial need should not discourage our students and families from applying. So that's why about half of our families receive financial aid, and we have over $2 million in financial aid available. So we really hope that you will take this opportunity to push yourself outside your comfort zone and make an incredible place like Rennes, France, Viterbo, Italy, or Saragossa, Spain, your home. Please do follow us on social media, Instagram and TikTok. We have campus reporters reporting out all the time for us, which is super helpful to see what a day in the life is like. So I will stop sharing my screen, and then we will head on over to our Q&A with our alums. So welcome back, SYA alums. We will get right into our Q&A when we talk about our favorite classes. So Hannah, if you could start us off talking about one of your favorite classes at SYA.
Sure thing. So one of my favorite classes at SYA was definitely my art history class. And mostly because when we went into Fieldworks, it was definitely, like as the video said, we were learning by experience. So each time we got to visit museums, and either in Rennes or in Paris when we got the opportunity, it was putting everything that we learned in class into context. And that was something I just loved.
Absolutely. We hear that from a lot of students, that it's the first time, and I experienced this in semester school myself, it was the first time that I could study something in the morning and see it later in the day, and making those connections in my brain. It was just the best experience. It's still, all of that stuff still sticks with me today. It's such a testament to how well that works. So Mary Morgan, could you talk a little bit about one of your favorite classes, please?
So my favorite class was agroecology, and I had no idea what that was before I came to SYA, but it's basically the science behind food, which Italy is the perfect place to be learning that. So the SYA Italy campus actually has their own garden, and we were able to utilize a lot of the garden and make a lot of food specific to Italy. We made ricotta cheese, we made wine, we made pasta, and it kind of helped me to understand such like a vital part of the Italian culture, which is food. So yeah.
I'm very jealous of you, Mary Morgan. All right, so let's go over to talking about our co-curricular activities. So all of our students do at least 2 local activities. So Will, if you could talk about your favorite.
Yeah, so I played basketball and tennis for co-curricular sports, and I also did a cooking class. I think taking advantage of the opportunities to play sports in another country is super, super rewarding for a couple of reasons. First, you get to practice a lot of Spanish, and you also, well, I say Spanish, but because I was practicing a lot of Spanish, but you also get to help local kids with their English. So I joined a basketball team with 3 American friends from SYA, and we not only made some super close Spanish friends, but we also got really close to one of our coaches. And it wasn't overly competitive, and it was a really great opportunity for immersion. Highly recommend that. And also, I think one of the coolest things that SYA offered, I did it first semester, they offered it both semesters, was the cooking class. It wasn't a huge commitment, and you could do it with a lot of your friends, and you do actually cook. We weren't like watching someone else do it. We were actually cutting up each component, or like mixing, or even frying and cooking. And I think if you're unsure of something to do and you have a free afternoon, the cooking class is an amazing option.
Great. Thank you so much for speaking about that, Will. I think we hear from a lot of students too that kind of the vocabulary that you pick up if you play a sport or on a team or with a group of people, whether it's playing an instrument, it's such niche vocabulary, but you can really bond with local people over a shared interest and learn it really quickly. So I love that you experienced that. And I think I've heard that echoed by a lot of SYA alumni. So Seti, if you could talk about your activity, that'd be great.
Yeah, I did a couple. I did boxing. I tried out boxing for the first time in Spain. I joined a girls like kind of club soccer team. And I did a lovely art class with my wonderful friend Meredith, who I think is on this call. And I think my favorite was probably soccer. Spain is a very soccer-oriented country. And I had a lot of fun playing with the girls. It wasn't competitive because we weren't playing in any games, but my soccer skills improved so much, as well as like my vocabulary in Spanish. And I think my art class was probably my second favorite because I did it with a bunch of SYA people. And it was just so much fun.
Awesome. Thank you, Seti. Yeah, I think, and both of you spoke to this well, that there's just a totally wide range of activities and you can do a lot of that range. So you often have time in your day after school in between host family dinner and classes to also try out a new activity. And what better place than in a new country and just try a couple of new things. So I think that that's awesome. All right, on to everyone's favorite topic, favorite food. So Will, if you talk about your favorite food in Spain.
Yeah, so I would say that easily my favorite food from Spain was paella. It's a pretty cliche answer, but I think paella, not only does it taste like really good, it also holds some of my favorite host family memories. So it's a tradition in Spain to have super long lunches on Sundays or any weekend day that's accompanied by a paella. They're called comidas. And it's where much of like your family, your host family, your friends, your relatives, their relatives all convene. And I had a bunch of these, and making a paella with my host dad and his brothers will like always kind of remain as one of my favorite moments in Spain. So again, I think it's not just a great like tasting traditional food, but the customs that it's involved, that paella is involved in, are amazing as well.
Yeah, that's a lot of quality time with your host family preparing a paella, I'm sure. Hours and hours of hard work, but great bonding opportunity. Mary Morgan, I'm going to turn over to you to hear about one of your favorite trips that you did, either with SYA or with your buddies from SYA.
Yeah, so SYA actually, I don't know about for other countries, but for Italy, we did two big school trips that were about a week each. So in the spring, I went with my school to Sicily, and we actually went to a couple different towns in Sicily, but that was definitely my favorite school trip just because we were at a time where we all spoke the language really well, but then we got to Sicily and realized that they actually speak basically a different language. So it was really interesting to see like another aspect of Italy, because there's just so much intersection of culture there that we were able to explore. And we also had a lot of independence to kind of do what we wanted and go see the things we wanted, along with being guided by SYA and our teachers to see a lot of cultural aspects there. But yes, I loved Sicily.
I'm so glad to hear it. Yeah, so for our listeners, each campus does put on multiple school-wide trips to different locations in each country. And then after a few months, students can earn the right to travel with 2 to 3 students from SYA. Their agenda has to be approved by guardians at home, host family, and the resident director, the head of our campus. And each step of the agenda has to be very thoughtfully planned out, and students have to be reachable at all times. So there are kind of 2 travel components to SYA. But the first few trips are all with the school and teachers. Okay, Seti, why don't we hear about one of your favorite trips?
Yeah, so this past March, I did an independent travel trip with Will and a couple other friends to Sevilla, which is in the southern part of Spain, and it was absolutely one of my favorite trips. They also speak kind of a different like language in Sevilla, so it was really cool like seeing the differences between the northern parts of Spain and the southern parts of Spain. And we went to go see like flamenco shows and had really, really, really good paella, and the weather was amazing. And feeling like I felt really independent in the moment, because it was one of our independent travel trips, and it was just great being able to experience that part of Spain with my friends.
Absolutely. I think that often our students are really impressed with themselves after completing an independent travel trip and planning it from start to finish, thinking about all the travel logistics, communicating completely in the target language at every single step of the way. It's a really big accomplishment. And talk about what colleges and universities love to see, that independence and that sense of autonomy is a really amazing skill that you definitely get to work on while you're at SYA. So speaking about some of my favorite parts of SYA, the host family component. This is a huge component of SYA. All of our students fill out a lengthy survey about what they are looking for in a host family. The host families go through intensive background checks, home visits, and every campus has a host family coordinator that consistently checks in with the students and families to see how things are going. They're very much a present part of campus. They don't just place students and then head off. They're at campus every day. So our students are able to communicate about how it's going. So Hannah, can we hear a little bit about a favorite memory with your host family, please?
Yeah, my host family, just to start, was the most absolute adorable people I have ever met. They were extremely kind and welcoming from the get-go. And it was basically composed of one brother and 2 host sisters, and they were all older than me. So that was a bit tricky at first, but I slowly got into the groove of things with them. But one of my favorite memories was that with them would have to be their birthdays. All of their birthdays happened while I was with them, and it was so interesting because each one had a different style, if you will, of how they celebrated. So for example, my host sister, we went out to the most extravagant, to say the least, dinner, and it was full of laughter, fun, dancing, singing, and that's a night I will always remember with them and something I cherish the most.
Absolutely. I think we talk a little bit about benefits of going for the year, going for a semester. And I think all of you having gone for the year, a majority of our students do go for the year, and seeing stuff like birthdays, holidays, seasons, all in the host country is really an incredible experience. It opens up a lot of the opportunities and also really widens your perspective on what does a kind of 3 seasons or a full academic year really look like in a new place. And seeing that and going through the birthdays with your host family, it's a really incredible experience. So Mary Morgan, if you could talk to us a little bit about memories with your host family.
Okay, so I also had an amazing host family. It was definitely the highlight of my experience. So I lived with my host mom and my host dad, and then I had a brother who was my age and an older sister, and I also had a dog who was really cute. And so my favorite memories with my host family were definitely at the beach because they actually had a house that was about an hour from Viterbo. So especially when it was warm, we used to all drive down to the beach. And I think those trips were actually, kind of the moments that I got really comfortable with them, and it helped me to really bond with them from the get-go. And my family was really into tennis, which I had never really played tennis before. So they would all go down to the beach and we would all play tennis, and we would watch tennis tournaments together. So I think that was definitely really a bonding experience for us. And it kind of helped me to understand what they valued. And it really made me feel like I was a part of their family.
Absolutely. I think that we often get questions about, okay, is it more like I live with my host family and then I go to school all day, or am I really interacting with them that much? All of our host families have family dinner every school night that our students have to be present for, and they are fully prepared to incorporate the SYA student as their own child. So what your host family does, if they go to a birthday party, you're going to. So you're very much a part of the family, and our families are really excited about that component with working with SYA. So one day a week of our at all of our campuses is a fieldwork day. That means that our students are out in the community, going to museums, talking with local people, really experiencing the culture. So Will, if you could talk a little bit about your favorite fieldwork at SYA Spain.
Yeah, definitely. So I think in Spain, there were kind of 2 different types of field work that we did, and I want to talk about both of them. And so I think easily my favorite field work was Alcázar. It was during our first few weeks in Spain, and I think it really introduced us to the Pueblo culture that exists surrounding Zaragoza. So we basically got to explore this beautiful Pueblo, swim in a beautifully naturally formed body of water, and we did an even more beautiful hike. And I think it was a great bonding experience. It was super well planned, very informative, and very immersive too. But I also think that the other kind of type of field work I would like to give credit to was our interview field works. So I think these, as uncomfortable as they could be, are what personally I can attribute most to my rapid Spanish improvement, I would say. For example, I think in the first few weeks in my Spanish language class, we had to go out and interview people about the education system in Spain. So not only did we learn pretty much everything about this system and tons of new vocabulary, I think the most important thing was getting comfortable in those street conversation-esque situations. And I think that was what was easily the most rewarding part of fieldwork. And leaving Spain able to approach whoever and ask about anything, like in our capstone interviews where we were interviewing important figures about complex issues, it feels really good. And I think these fieldworks were a focal part of our improvement to that point.
Absolutely. I think the conversational and experiential aspect to our schools are really what makes SYA stand out. You know, we're not just sending students into a school building every day of the week. We want them to be out speaking with locals. We want them to have experiences that really enrich the educational component of our program. And that makes us a little bit different than maybe the students watching at home, their homeschool experience. And so I think it's a great skill to have, Will, in general, but also in the target language, even better. Mary Morgan, can you tell us a little bit about your favorite fieldwork, please?
Yeah, so I agree in the fact that I feel like a lot of our fieldwork opportunities really pushed us out of our comfort zones. For example, I remember one day, I think it was, I don't know, the third or fourth fieldwork activity. All we were given was the name of a town on a piece of paper and a time that we had to check in and a time that we had to be back by. So, and obviously it was a little daunting, but the goal of that was kind of that we had to get out of our comfort zones and go around and ask locals and figure out how to use the bus system and make it to that town. And it just felt so rewarding finally getting there after having asked for, I don't know, bus schedules and what are the best things to do in the town. And, you know, we really had to like develop our language skills and, you know, get comfortable with speaking to people and speaking to locals because, you know, that is really the best way to immerse. And I don't know, I remember getting back from that whole experience just feeling so much more comfortable, getting to know kind of how to get around the country. But yeah.
Totally. And I think a huge component of SYA is the desire to push yourself outside your comfort zone. There are definitely going to be situations where you're fumbling over your words and you're don't feel quite ready to have some conversations, but that's the best way to learn. And I think our students are really excited for that opportunity. So thank you both for sharing. So we get this question a lot, a typical day at SYA, and maybe a little bit about your friends and the group that you go to school with. So Hannah, if you could talk about your kind of typical schedule at SYA.
Sure. So I don't recall at what time exactly we started, but I'm going to say 9 a.m. And if that's wrong, I'm sorry. But so we start the day at 9 a.m. and all of the classes at SYA France are 45 minutes. So I think I had 2 classes in the morning. Then we had lunch at a local high school every day, which was one experience to have. At first I was like, how is this going to happen? Like, I don't really know these people. But then I ended up making some really close friends at the high school that we had lunch at, which was called Jean Massé. And after that, we went back, had another 2 classes, and that was the day. But on Tuesdays, we ended at 5:30. And let me tell you why. We had a 2-hour, it's called Français par l'expérience. So in English, that's French by experience, literally. So that is where either we started learning about fieldwork, we started working on our capstone. And that class, even though it was the longest 2 hours of my life, it was one of the best moments I had at SYA because I got to speak incredibly. I learned so much about myself and about my peers. And it was just a moment where a certain group of people were created into this really close-knit community. But that's kind of a typical day at SYA France.
Thank you, Hannah. Yeah, so just for those of you listening, there are 6 classes that all of our students take. 2 of those are language classes and 1 is an experiential language class. So very much getting outside the classroom, speaking with locals, practicing your conversation skills. 1's a little bit more traditional. And then there are 4 more classes. English and math are taught in English, often by teachers from the United States. And then there are 2 electives that students choose from. So agroecology, as Mary Morgan talked about, was one of them. Art history, politics, different campuses have different ones, which you can see on our course catalog. But those 2 are choices by the student. So I think we are going to Seti to talk a little bit about a typical day at SYA Spain, please.
Yeah, so at SYA Spain, we started at 8:30 in the morning, and usually I'd take the tram to school, which is a little 15-minute trip because I lived a little bit farther outside the city. And I'd get to school. We had 3 classes before lunch and 3 classes after lunch. And we also had lunch in a local high school called Compañía Maria. And the food was great. And we had usually after lunch, we'd go to the cafe that's right behind school and have like a little 20-minute chat with whoever we were with. Then go back to classes. And school usually ended around like 4 or 5. Then after if we didn't have co-curriculars right after school, we'd go get something to eat or go study at the library. And weekends we'd get home a little later and go out to eat with friends and stuff like that. And yeah, you just get really close with SYA. I think I'm still in touch. We're still in touch, all of us. And I've made the best friends I've made in my entire life, and relationships with your teachers get insanely great. I'm still in touch with my art history teacher because I love her so much, and she taught me so much about art history. And yeah, like the SYA community, you get so close to people at SYA and people outside of SYA. Like Spanish teenagers eating at Compañía Maria really helped us develop relationships with other people besides SYA kids. So yeah.
Absolutely. I'm so glad you spoke to the community that SYA creates. I think it's such a unique experience that I tend to see our students bond, I think, faster than any other group, just because you're all going through such an interesting, start and orientation together, and you lean on each other. You have to really, you share fun stories about your host family and when you made a mistake in the language, and that just creates community, I think, really quickly. And I went to our SYA Spain campus this spring, and I was amazed not only with the depth of relationship that students had with each other and their teachers, but also the level of Spanish speaking that was going on in the classroom. I think it's pretty incredible to see a group that at the start was more comfortable speaking English, totally transitioning completely into Spanish throughout the year. It was really amazing to see. So we're going to hear from all of you on this final question, and then we'll get into our questions from the audience. But what was it that made you apply to SYA in the end? Or what would you tell to students who are really on the fence or not sure if they should go to SYA? We can kind of popcorn around, but maybe Mary Morgan, you can start us off with what made you apply.
Okay, so I found out about SYA, I think, in middle school, because one of my best friend's older sister actually did it. And I remember telling my mom, like, I think in 6th grade, like, I want to do that. And she was kind of like, oh, yeah, sure, okay. And thought that I would kind of like grow out of it. But, when sophomore year rolled around and the applications came out, I was still adamant about going. And I think the thing that really, pushed me to do it was I had kind of gone to the same high school for my whole life. I lived in the same town. And I really just wanted an experience. And I wanted to get out of my comfort zone. And obviously, SYA is the best way to do that. And I think that my advice to anyone thinking about SYA is just kind of the fact that you're thinking about it shows that, you're ready to have that type of experience. And I know it can be a little daunting. It's a long time, and, learning a new language and living with a host family is a little overwhelming. But I think the fact that you're even considering it shows that you're kind of capable of having those experiences. And I would just say go for it.
Yeah, I think that I hear from a lot of applicants, like, I don't know, am I too nervous to go? And I say all of our students are nervous. All of our students aren't 100% sure about this experience. There's a lot of unknown. But if you're excited by this idea, apply, just put your, think about it and talk to your family about it and your school about it, but give yourself that chance to consider that seriously. So Will, can we hear about, what was it that made you apply to SYA? What would you tell students who are on the fence?
Yeah, so I actually had 2 cousins do SYA. So it was always kind of ingrained in my mind as a possibility, but I was super on the fence, and I actually applied to the summer program first to just go for 5 weeks, because I was like, there's no way I want to give up my whole year. Like, that would be like too insane, like too far. And it got canceled because of COVID. And so after that, both of my cousins that had done the year-long program visited us for Christmas, and they just like raved about it, about SYA and like the opportunities it had given them. And after those recommendations and, some research, some like internal debates, I decided to just apply for the full year. I was like, they were telling me like after 5 weeks, like we didn't know anything. Like you're not like 5 weeks just really isn't enough to truly learn the language. And so after that, I applied for the full year, and amazing decision. So yeah.
Oh, that's so great to hear. I think what we often try to tell students as well is that it isn't until, a month or two in that you start to really be able to produce and speak in the language. And it can take a couple of weeks to get settled and to get to know your host family and build those really special relationships. So I think the full year experience is just a great way to get that full immersion experience and really feel like you have a home in a new place. Hannah, let's go to you.
Yeah, so like Mary Morgan, SY came to my school freshman year, and I was like, wow, like this was made for me. This is something I have to do. And if I don't do it, I don't know, like I would be so upset. But especially with COVID, I needed a change of scenery. I needed a change of seeing my apartment like 24/7. I just couldn't do it. So I decided to apply, and personally, I was never on the fence about going. It was more of, would they accept me or would they not? And if they did, it was just meant to be. So that's something that I am extremely grateful and fortunate to have experienced. And something I would say to someone who's considering even applying, just piggybacking on what everybody else has said, this experience, I promise you, is the experience of a lifetime. You will never regret this decision. You will make so many like relationships that will last forever. And I know for me, it's opened a million doors. For example, I lived in Thailand for a month and a half thanks to SYA. So, the possibilities are endless on what you can gain from this experience.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing, Hannah. All right, Seti, how about you?
Yeah, so SY also came to my school my sophomore year. And I had heard about it, and I kind of just put it to the back of my mind, like this would be so cool if I could do it. And my mom was actually 10 times more invested than I was and kept texting me about it and was like, Seti, I could totally see you doing this. And I think 3 other classmates of mine applied, and we all got in. And I actually applied to the semester program originally because all my other classmates did. But then I was thinking about it, and I actually attended one of the info sessions with the alums, and one of them was telling us that after, like, for the semester program, he was recommending whether we do semester or year, and he said that after like only, I think it was 3 months, his family had come to visit him, and he realized that he still was not as, like, he wasn't fluent yet, and feel like he didn't know the culture as well as he did by the end of his full year. So that's actually what convinced me to change my mind. And so I emailed SYA and I switched to full year. And I do not regret it one bit. I'm so happy I did SYA, and it's actually been the best experience of my high school career.
That's so awesome, Seti. I truly believe that you are speaking to a couple of students who are watching now, who are really considering the semester and who after that are like, I'm doing the year. So we do have a couple of questions from our audience, and we can kind of go through and popcorn around. How many kids are in the program? It ranges from about 50 to 60-ish for each program. So that's about how many all, again, go to the SYA campus every day together. And credits transferring, that depends on the school. We are a fully accredited US high school, and you can see our course catalog online. I highly recommend bringing that into your registrar or school counselor and getting those credits checked. But it does depend on the school, and sometimes our families do have to have conversations with the school about credit transfers. The application process is pretty simple. The students write a personal essay, one essay. They do an interview, which they can sign up for with our admissions team or an alum. And then there are a transcript and 3 teacher recommendations, an English teacher, advisor, and a language teacher. And those are all through our SYA application online. So the recommenders don't write a letter and send it to us. It's actually a form that the student can send the teacher the link to. Does every campus have a semester and year-long program? Yes. I will say that semester spots are very limited. Only about 10 to 15 students can go per semester. versus we have usually about 40 to 50 year-long students at each campus. So it is more selective in the admissions process, but all campuses do offer fall, spring, and the full year programs. I think we talked a little bit about the admissions process part of that. What if you change your mind and want to leave after a semester? It's funny, we had tons of students go for the fall semester and really plead to stay for the full year. But if something happens that you have to return home for, we would talk to you and your family about the best decision for you. We do want you to go into whatever program you apply for wholeheartedly and committed to that. But of course, every situation is different, and we can kind of speak about that, during your time at SYA. How are host families assigned? Again, it's a long survey from the student, background checks on SYA campus, home visits, constant communication from the host family coordinator through the year, and new families have to be referred to SYA through existing host families. So it's a pretty small community, all within commutable distance to school. Okay, capstone projects. I know all of you want to talk about this, so let's just go around. Seti, why don't we start with you, and then we'll go to Hannah.
Yeah, capstone projects at SYA Spain were so fun. Capstone week was such a great week. I did my capstone project on air-generated electricity and windmills and windmill parks in Zaragoza. And our capstone included a lot of field work and out in the field research. And so my host family was actually perfect for this because my host uncle worked at a windmill park. So he took me up inside a windmill and took me to see how everything worked. And it was such a great experience. And I did really well on my capstone. So that was just such an amazing part of SYA, I think.
Awesome. And before Hannah goes, I do want to say, so our capstone project is kind of like a mini thesis project basically at SYA. So the experiential language class turns into kind of a capstone workshop. All of our students get to choose their topic as long as it's approved by the teacher, and really just follow an interest. Seti's example is great because host uncle worked in this field. You could get hands-on experience just from your host family. And so that's what we want our students to do, to really be able to explore something academically that they've been intrigued by throughout the year. So that's just kind of a summary. Hannah, over to you.
So one of the specialties in Ren is cider. So I did my entire capstone on how cider's made, the process, and everything like that. And like Seti, it's a little bit more complicated. My host mom's brother's wife, her brother, is 1 in 3 people in Ren who has the right to make eau de vie, and that's basically something that's extracted from cider. So I got to learn all about that process. It was definitely hands-on too, and it was a really fun experience. I got to press apples, which was something really interesting. I didn't know how that was done, and make it into apple juice as well as something on the side that he let me do with him. And it was just a really cool experience because he's very well known, and it was definitely, I don't think without my host family's connection, I would have been able to connect with him so easily. So yeah, that was my capstone.
And I love that both of yours tied in your host family. Your host family knew exactly what you were interested in school. They wanted to set you up for success and have you experience this part of their culture. I think that's a testament to how well you knew your host family. Will, over to you about your capstone.
Yeah, so living in Florida and kind of near the beach, I can actually talk about it right now because we're having a hurricane and the dunes are all getting destroyed. But the environment had always been something super prevalent in my life. So when I got to Spain and we were learning about these pueblos, like I talked about with my favorite fieldwork, where people were literally selling their houses, trying to get rid of them for €1 or for free, trying to give them away for free because they couldn't maintain the house and they needed to move to a city because of droughts and water issues. That immediately stuck out to me as something that I wanted to learn more about. So I did a presentation on the effects of climate change and global warming on the region of Spain that we were in, which was Aragon. And it turned out to be super interesting. I got to interview the leaders of companies that were trying to prevent climate change and how they were doing it. So there's a massive paper plant in Zaragoza. It's one of the things that it's known for, and you'll know immediately when you get there because there's just a stench for like in like half the city from this paper plant. But so I got to interview like people that were trying to convert the paper into a more renewable source. So making paper out of things other than trees, because that was causing global warming or climate change issues, sorry, and like issues with the air quality. So it turned out to be a super interesting exposition that I ended up doing.
Awesome. Thank you, Will. And Mary Morgan.
So I did a film project on the hidden gems of Viterbo. So I kind of used all the connections that I had made throughout the year and conducted around 15 or so interviews with local teens, host families, cafe owners that we went to. I talked to a local monk. I talked to teachers, basically anyone who was a local, and asked them what was a hidden gem of Viterbo that you wouldn't normally know about unless you had grown up there or knew a lot about the town. So it was interesting because I was kind of given all these instructions of things that I had never heard about before, and I was given oral directions to get to all these places. So I kind of dragged all my friends around to try to find these places so I was able to film them. And, that was a way. It kind of made me think, like, at the end, like, oh, I don't really know Viterbo as well as I thought I did, because there's just all these quirks in these old medieval towns that I was able to capture and compile them all into a video, and along with interviews, and then I presented that at the end during our capstone presentations.
Wow, that's awesome. I feel like every year, every SYA program should now start with your video, Mary Morgan, so that nobody misses out on the hidden gems. That's awesome. So our final question here, we do have 2 more questions. I see a question about learning difficulties. I'm going to put my email in the chat for that question, just because every student's different. We want to be able to work with you. So I would do a personal email on that one. And then there's a question about a minimum age. So we do accept rising sophomores, juniors, and seniors. All of our sophomores do a parent interview as well with our head of our director of enrollment. But there is no technical minimum age requirement. We would just learn about you in the interview process and then speak with your parents as well. Will, I know you wanted to share a story about kind of the age dynamic at SYA.
Yeah, so one of my best friends in Spain, I mean, he was really friends with all of us, but I think I can say one of my best friends was actually a sophomore. And so as I got closer with him, we were talking about how in the beginning of the year, he was super nervous coming in because he was a sophomore and he still had so much of high school left. But he was probably one of the coolest people there. Everyone was friends with him. We all loved him. He was one of like 5 sophomores who all integrated super well. I just can really speak to his character because, I mean, if you're a sophomore interested in this program, I think you're already super mature, and I think you're going to be able to integrate just as great. And I think especially because it's such a small program, seniors, juniors, sophomores, the lines are very blurred when you get there. It literally does not matter at all. So I think if you're on the younger side considering applying and that's the only barrier that you're facing, absolutely knock down that barrier because it does not matter at all. Take it from me. One of my best friends was a sophomore, and I think if he was here to testify, he would say the exact same thing.
I love that. I think that the shared goal of just having this really unique experience and immersing yourself in a language and culture, being part of a small community is really what unites SYA students way more than having kind of differentiation by grade. It's just that everyone's in it together for this shared goal, I think, which makes our community really special. Thank you all for joining. I want to say a huge thank you to our alums. You all were incredible. I'm so honored to present alongside of you and hear and learn about your experiences. Thank you all so much. Again, for everyone listening, please follow us on our Instagram and TikTok. Again, our local reporters are posting content often so that you can see what's going on our campuses. You have my email in the chat, and I really appreciate all of your time. Thank you, everyone, and have a great rest of your evening. We really appreciate it.